And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going back in time. We're going to be printing some really old newspaper for a penny. Today we're looking at Penny Press. This is from Asmati Games. It's for 2 to 5 players. It's sort of area control-ish game, a gateway sort of game. It takes about 45 minutes to play, and 2 to 5 players, and it won the Tabletop Deathmatch, which is a national competition of independent board game designers, and so it got a lot of press. Haha, Penny Press. Let's take a look. At the beginning of Penny Press, you get to pick your paper name, and you get to pick from 1 or 2 different designs. So we have the Journal, we have the Times, we have the World, we have the Daily Sun, and we have the Herald. And then you take some of the your reporters and your scorekeeper, and we get going. I have the game set up here for 3 players. Now, at the beginning of the game, there's going to be a certain amount of these stories out. It's going to be random every time. It's going to be a different amount of stories depending on how many players are playing. So what we have here is what you're trying to do is over the course of the game, you're going to be trying to send your reporters to stories, trying to get to those stories fast and put them into print and score points. Now, the stories are in different beats. We have war, crime and calamity, politics, New York City, and human condition. And as we can see, it's sort of randomly there. And here's all the stories that will get loaded in there as time goes on. There's also a bonus track up here that we'll talk about later, but it does actually start with some randomization there at the beginning of the game as well. On your turn, you could do one of 4 things. One of the things is you could take any amount of reporters and put them on any one single story. So I'm going for war, and I'm going for this big paper version of this. Now let's say after everyone's had their first turn, it might look something like this. And then maybe I place one guy there. Maybe yellow fights me for that story, puts 2 there. And maybe orange puts 2 over here for their turn. Now keep in mind, actually every time something is placed on a story, the news beat goes up. So for as many unique stories are being covered, the news beat goes up. So this is up by 1. There's 2 unique stories here. So every time something's placed, the news beat goes up. And what this tells you is how many points each news beat is going. So now there's 2 news beats that are at a level of 4. This one and this one. Even though they're not the same level up and down, they're at the same level. These 2 are considered the top news beats right now. So we've shown you the first thing you can do on your turn. And again, you're only doing one thing on your turn, but you're placing reporters. Another thing you can do is you can take one reporter and move them to another story. So let's say I think I'm going to get beat here. I'll take this guy and I will just place him over here. And so now this one goes up because now there's 2 unique stories there. And so on and so forth. And the last thing, movement-wise, that you could do is you can pick up any amount of reporters and take them back into your hand. So you're either placing reporters, moving one reporter, taking any amount back, or you're what's called going to press. Now, let's say this is, let's say at the end of the round, let's say, let's just say I went to press like this. I'll show you what it looks like. So what I would do is I would take all the ones that I was leading on. Now let's also say orange had a guy there. Now I would take all the papers that I have guys on, any place that I am winning or at least tied, I would take this. Now this person was tied with me, but I went to press, so I get to go first. Now he gets to publish a story, but I got there first, so he gets what's called a scoop point. This S is pointing to 1 point, so that orange player would get 1 point for having gotten to that story. They just didn't get there first. I get the paper, but he gets his guy back into his hand. So I've got all my guys back, and I've published these 2 stories, and I need to make my paper. Now, notice what happened when I pulled these off. The war story was at least tied for the top news beat. So this is the top news beat. And this one, the New York City, was not. It was lower. So keep that in mind. Now, the top news beat has to touch the top line of your paper because you'd want it at the beginning of the paper. Now, anytime you're placing things, look at this. You can flip it and it goes different ways, which is pretty cool. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this like this. It touches my top page. Now this one was not the top news beat, but you have one type of story that's, if it's not the top news beat, it can be what's called your exclusive. This is where you say extra, extra, read all about it. You have an exclusive story. And if you can make your exclusive story also touch the top, you'll get double the amount of points. So let's see how many points we have here. I got 4 points for my top news beat and it touches the top of my page. This was my exclusive and it touched the top of my page because it's not the top news beat and it touched the top of my page, so I double that. So that's 6 plus the 4 over there is 10 minus 4. So I only got 6 points out of that, which was not really that great. So Gray got to go to 6 points. Now I could have waited a little longer and tried to have gotten a third story, but I don't know what would have happened. Maybe somebody would have tried to attack, man my guys out of there. But keep in mind, the 2 stories that I did get are the 2 that are highest in the bonus, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. So once I finished and got my scores, these stay in front of me, face up, so everybody can see it, and then I get a penny, knowing that I've gone to press 1 time. We then draw a headline card, and we read, Giant Cables Connect Record-Setting Bridge. A few things happen. First of all, it tells me which beats move up on the bonus scale. This is New York City, which is good actually, because this is the one that I had just done a story on, 1, 2, 3. So both stories that I just did are the 2 highest of the bonuses right now, which is actually pretty good. So it might end up turning out okay for me to get that low score at the beginning. The card also tells us what stories to add to the beats out there. So we have B of the human condition and D of New York City. So we were to add those stories, adjust the news beats, and the next person would start their turn. Keep in mind that all these always go sideways, but that's pretty much how it goes to keep it there. And finally, I have a location of where I have to put an advertisement token. See, it's in the furthest right where the penny is. I would go to the furthest place that I have a penny, which is here, and I would put it in that column. That means that next time I score, I can't put something over there. It just makes it a little bit harder and more puzzly to do that. And this would continue as people are putting people out and going to press, and that's how pretty much a whole round works. This will continue until somebody goes to press 3 times in a 4 or 5 player game, or 4 times in a 2 or 3 player game. Once that happens, a final round happens. So after someone's gone to press for the final time, the final addition happens, and all of the beat scores flip over to red, meaning that they don't move. Even if different people cover stories, it doesn't budge. Everyone else has, except the person that finished their last press, gets to possibly have 2 more turns. But on that turn, they're limited by only either placing one guy or going to press on their turn, or they can just, they could put 1 guy, and then when it's their turn again for their final turn, they can go to press, or they can go to press right away, whatever makes sense to them. But when they place, they can only place 1 guy in this final round. And then they go to press for the final time, and then after that, we look at the bonuses. Now you may notice that there were stars on the ones that I got. All of these stories start with a 3-star story on the bottom, a 2-star story next to it, and a 1-star on the top. So what happens is as the game goes on, the stories get better and better, and they mean more for the bonuses. Because at the end of the game, for each news beat, you're going to count up how many stars you have. So in this case, I would only have 1, but if I had these 2, I'd have 3 stars in war. So at the end of the game, whoever has the most or is tied with the most would get 10 extra points. In New York City, whoever has the most has 8. In politics, 6. Human condition, 4. And climate calamity, 3. And again, those get moved by these cards after people go to press. And after those bonus points are awarded, we look to see who has the most points, and whoever is the winner. Now there are 2 variants. There is a variant to allow you to play the game with 2 players. How that works is the first player takes his turn as normal, and after that first turn of the game, each player gets to take 2 turns in a row all the way to the final edition. Also, there's a Newsboy variant. It's an advanced rule. Essentially, you play with this when you're playing with 4 or 5 players. This starts in the hands of the player to the left of the start player. When it's your turn, this Newsboy has caused a strike. You do not get to go. You pass this to the person to your right. And then it goes around, everyone gets a turn. The person to your right is going to pass this and his turn is going to get skipped, and then you get to go. And it kind of gives you 1 less turn going around, which changes the board quite a bit. And so that's an advanced variant that gives a different strategic option. All right, Penny Press. If you've watched my reviews before, you know that I love games that have unique and or historic or realistic themes. Check, got it. Love the press, love that it's a unique theme. That theme really spoke to me. What I love even more about it is that a lot of the game the game mechanisms match the theme, which anytime you could do that, oh man, double check, right? You're setting people out. You're sending reporters out to a story. Hey, that type of story or that beat, for example, crime and calamity, goes up because it's gonna sell more because more people are going after it. The more people go after it, the more it's in the people's faces that buy the papers. It gets a hoopla and it gets more points. Totally thematic. Oh, what? There's another story with there. Somebody goes on. It gets even more points. I love that how the more stories uniquely that are being put on by people, the higher points that's gonna be. And of course, if someone rushes to press, which is a cool part of this game because I feel like this game is, even though, I mean, it basically comes down to, I've heard some people call it like a worker placement. I don't think it's worker placement. I've heard people call it like an auction game. It kind of feels like a little bit of an auction where you're kind of auctioning off a story with your guys. I feel like it's a pretty straightforward gateway, family level, area control game with a set collection because you're trying to get those bonus points. But I also feel like it's a little bit of a racing game sometimes too, where like you've got guys on maybe 2 stories and you've got decisions to make. Do I rush to press now because I don't know what other people are going to do? Maybe they're going to come squash my guys and put one more than me, and then I got to spend a whole nother turn either going somewhere else or trying to outdo them again. And it's like that rush, and as soon as someone goes to press, it's like, oh man, now I got to go to press and try to keep up with them. And it has that tension of feeling like it's a race, and I think that's very thematic because, when you're putting the stories out, the first story, whoever gets the scoop, usually gets the big bucks in the papers, right? So it had that rush feeling. It really felt like I was fighting other newspapers. I mean, it was very, very thematic, and I love that about this. I like that it's simple. I like that you're going to do 4 things. It takes 5 minutes to teach the game. I like that you have the different decisions of where do I go? Am I going to fight you for that? Or am I just going to go off here and be able to go to press faster? Because every turn means something in this game. For every time that someone fights you or you fight someone, that's 1 less turn that you get to go to press, which means it's 1 less turn that you're going to be able to beat people and change the board. Has some unique strategies where you can go to press at specific times to screw people up purposely. You can look at their board and see where their advertisement is. You can say, oh, if I go to press here, this is going to change. This is no longer going to be the top beat, but this one is. Now he's not going to be able to put both of his stories on the top. He's got an advertisement. This one's going to go out. It's going to cause him a lot less points than it would. So you can do that to a sneaky thing too. I like how as the game unfolds, the stories get stronger towards the bonuses. So at the beginning of the game, they're only worth 1 star. Middle game, 2 stars. At the end of the game, 3 stars. So you're starting to buck around for these different beats, and you're trying to look at other people. You can see which ones you're going for, and you're trying to go for those different bonus points, and those are kind of randomized. I loved this game. I really loved the theme. I loved the mechanisms. I loved the production. I don't have really, as many games as I've got, I don't really have a good entry-level gateway type area control game because usually they're super mean and nasty. This is, don't get me wrong, area control, you step on someone, they're gonna get mad, but the theme is just, I don't know, you just get so intertwined in the theme that you don't even think about how mad you are at the time. So overall, excellent game. Love Penny Press. If you're looking for an area control set collection, family style, it is a pretty light game, but it's good. If you like theme that matches mechanics, if this interests you, you gotta check out Penny Press.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.